The Hollow One. Deep in the mist-shrouded woods of Old Hollow, the villagers knew better than to wander too far after dark. There were whispers of a thing that lived between the trees, a creature that didn't hunt for food, but for something far worse. Elliot, a skeptical journalist from the city, had come to investigate. Rural superstitions, he scoffed as Old Man Crowley, the tavern keeper, recounted hushed tales. A creature that mimics voices, that steals faces, that replaces you? Crowley leaned in. His breath smelled of whiskey and damp earth. Boy, you don't listen. The Hollow One don't just take. It becomes. Undeterred, Elliot packed his camera and ventured into the woods. The villagers refused to guide him, so he followed a crude, overgrown path alone. The deeper he went, the more the trees seemed to close in. There was a hush in the air. No birds, no wind, just the sound of his own breathing. Then the whispering began. At first it was distant, scattered among the leaves, his name called in soft, unfamiliar voices. Elliot, his breath hitched. He turned sharply, snapping photos at the empty woods. Just the wind, he muttered, but his fingers trembled. Then he heard it, a voice, his mother's voice. But she had been dead for 10 years. Elliot, come home, it pleaded from the trees. I miss you. His knees weakened. He saw a shape in the fog, a thin, towering figure with elongated limbs, its head cocked at an unnatural angle. And then, impossibly, it smiled. With his mother's lips, Elliot ran. Branches clawed at his skin, roots reached to trip him. The whispers followed, turning into screams. His own voice echoing back at him, screaming for help. He crashed into a hollowed-out tree and froze, panting. Silence. Then a soft, wet click behind him. He turned. It stood inches away. Its body a grotesque, sickly-looking thing. Its face pale and stretched too tightly into a wide, toothy smile. Elliot, it said in his voice, tilting its head. I see you. He tried to scream, but the thing tore open its maw and swallowed his cry and him whole. The pain was unspeakable. Not just his body being torn apart. His identity itself was being devoured. He could feel it clawing inside his head, unspooling his memories, unraveling the threads of his existence. His thoughts were drowning. His childhood gone. His own name gone. Something else was stitching itself together in his place. Something wrong. His skin sagged and peeled away like a discarded husk, revealing something slick, pulsing, and new beneath. He felt himself slipping away. Somewhere in the dying corners of his mind, he realized the truth. No one ever left the woods. No one ever made it out. Because the Hollow One didn't just steal faces, it stole souls. And now it had his. 2 days later, a man emerged from the Old Hollow woods. He looked like Elliot. He moved like Elliot. But something was wrong. His walk was off. His limbs just slightly too loose, too fluid, too unnatural. His arms swung as if he were testing how they worked, his head twitching in odd, sharp angles. The village fell silent as he stepped onto the dirt road, his bare feet leaving no sound. His clothes were still intact, but they didn't fit right anymore. His shirt was stretched over 2 prominent bones, his skin waxy and pale. Old Man Crowley was the first to react. His knuckles went white around the edge of the tavern door. Oh, God, he whispered. Not again. The thing wearing Elliot's skin turned its head toward Crowley too quickly, too mechanically, like a puppet yanked by invisible strings. And then it smiled. Not a normal smile. A too wide, too stretched thing, its lips splitting at the corners as if the skin itself was straining to contain it. Teeth. Too many teeth. The villagers backed away. Crowley swallowed hard, stepping forward, his voice shaking. What are you? Elliot, or what wore Elliot, blinked. The movement was off, like it had to remember to do it. Then, in Elliot's voice, but flattened, hollow, like the words had been pulled from somewhere deep and dark, it said, I am. Elliot, a beat of silence. Then the thing's jaw unhinged just slightly, a soft, wet crack splitting through the air. I am Elliot, it said again, tilting its head too far to one side, neck bending in an unnatural arc. It did not breathe. It did not blink again. And then, as if testing itself, it took a step forward, and another. Each footfall landed without a sound, like a shadow moving over the earth. The crowd backed away further. Some crossed themselves. A mother pulled her child behind her, whispering a desperate prayer under her breath. Crowley's heart pounded against his ribs. His fingers twitched toward the iron knife at his belt. Not that it would do anything, because they had seen this before. The thing that returned always came back, wearing their loved ones. And by the time they realized it wasn't them anymore, it was already too late. The Hollow One was here, and it was hungry.